Hey guys, welcome back to Gold Souls. So you might remember a few months ago I did a vinyl collection video. Today I want to do a similar video, but this time highlight a few of my favorite vinyl records from the 1970s. Now what I'm about to show you are all original copies, so I'm pretty excited about these, and the 70s is one of my favorite eras for music, so let's get started. Okay, so the first album is Commodores by the Commodores. This album came out in 1977. It's got some really great artwork here on the back. This actually did come with a poster, although the poster has some water damage. Ew! Y'all see that? This might be going in the trash, but at least y'all can see it before I have to get rid of it. Ooh. How in the world was this folded? Ah! Big mistake. Huge. Okay. It's a very seamless record. It feels like one big song to me. It's great for parties, get-togethers, 70s themed functions. Even if you're not having a party and you're just by yourself and you need a little pick-me-up, pop this on, you know? This next album is Bobby Caldwell's self-titled album from 1978. And I got this one from my mom. It might have come from a friend of hers growing up because somebody named Dorothy Robinson wrote her name on it. Usually when you come across albums like this, you're not really sure if it's gonna live up to the hype of its most popular song, but this one actually I think is pretty solid. Every single song on this, besides What You Won't Do for Love, is probably considered a deep cut. There are some songs on here that I actually I'm surprised didn't become really popular at the time, so I think that you should definitely check it out. If you like his voice, if you like What You Won't Do for Love, then you're gonna like a bunch of his other stuff too. This album is Seals and Crofts' Diamond Girl from 1973, Warner Brothers Records. This was a gift from a friend, found at a thrift shop, I believe. It's got quite a bit of wear and tear, which is just part of the fun. This is the back. We got that beautiful ring here from the record on the inside. Love that. We got pictures of band members with their families. Very cute. All the lyrics. There's two hits on here. You know, you got Diamond Girl and you've got We May Never Pass This Way Again. Both really great songs. Personally, I think Diamond Girl is the better song. You know, when I first listened to this, it wasn't what I expected given those two songs, but it's still a good time. I mean, like, these were two very talented guys, so, and it definitely shows throughout. The Way We Were. Wow. This is a soundtrack to a movie from 1974 starring Barbra Streisand and Robert Redford. It's just a beautiful movie. I think I really actually would love to do a video talking about the film at some point. I have realized through listening to the soundtrack and watching this film that The Way We Were theme melody is probably the greatest melody ever written of all time ever. No matter what way I hear it, whether that's Barbra Streisand singing it or like a violin or like a freaking xylophone, it will always be beautiful. It could bring anyone to tears immediately. I got this in a $1 bin, as you can see, at a thrift store, and this was a great find. The record's in beautiful condition. Somebody who owned this before me wrote a letter to whoever they gave it to, and it says, "Just to remember all the love we had in those 3 wonderful years and for the way we were. Love, C." Y'all really out here trying to get me crying. That just makes this even more special to me. Like there's a whole story behind this. I need answers. Like, what happened? Next we have Night Watch by Kenny Loggins. This album came out in 1978. One of the greatest voices ever. Like ever. The range that he had, the power that he had, or still has actually. He sounds great to this day. I think the only real hit he's got on here is Whenever I Call You Friend, which is actually featuring Stevie Nicks, although she's uncredited. Why you would ever uncredit a queen, I don't know. Even though, you know, a lot of these songs didn't become hits, obviously it was a great signal of what was to come in his career. I can't with this album cover. Like, he's really trying to say something here. Like, someone's coming in. He's like, oh no, who's breaking into my empty apartment? And then there's that man like outside. Then if you notice, like the perspective makes no sense because this way the street lamp is angled versus the way he's standing, it almost looks like it's supposed to be like a 2-story building, but I'm just not getting that vibe based on how big he is in the frame. It just, nothing is making sense here, but I appreciate the effort that went into this. I mean, truthfully, lighting this looks like it was probably a pretty intense ordeal, so I'll give him that. Backside. Oh, he's walking into his own room. I just got that, you guys. I'm still really confused though. Who is she? What is she doing? Why is it red outside, but it's purple and blue out here? I have so many questions. You know what's really great about this album is the first publicly known rendition of What a Fool Believes is on this album, because Kenny Loggins and Michael McDonald wrote that song together, and Kenny released it first, and it didn't really make any major waves, but it wasn't until Michael McDonald recorded it with the Doobie Brothers that it became a huge hit, despite the record company thinking it wasn't going to do well at all. And now it's one of like the most quintessential 70s songs, one of my favorite 70s songs in fact. Before receiving this record, I had no idea that Kenny was even involved in writing the song, but now of course it's like, duh, how could he not be? It just makes sense. It's like got him written all over it. And I had no idea that he recorded it previously, so when I listened to it, it was actually a pretty pleasant surprise, and I really enjoyed it. It's very different, but that melody is so strong and that piano is really strong that it still carries that element of fun that the song just has on its own. I was reading that after the Doobie Brothers had so much success with What a Fool Believes, Kenny wished that he could have recorded it again. So this is ELO's 7th studio album, released in 1977, and it's pretty dang long. We've got 2 records in here. The cover art, I think, is just the coolest thing I've ever seen in my life, and it opens up so intergalactic. Look at that. Star Wars could never. Oh, stunning. Let's look at the inside jacket. Lyric sheets against a starry background. I love when they've got really cool labels. It should be noted that while I was going through a lot of these 70s records, I can't remember which one it was, a bug fell out that had probably been dead inside the record for like 40 years, and it was terrifying. Just thought you should know that. The things I go through to make these videos. It says, this album constitutes a collaboration, experimental in nature, between Tim and myself. This is from Dan Fogelberg. It is an attempt for both of us to move outside our own recognizable boundaries and try new directions, new forms of music which we rarely get to explore on our own. It is a chance to stretch, an opportunity to grow, and a hell of a lot of fun. And it is. I was not expecting this to be as fun as it is. There's some jams on here, and I'd never even heard of this album before. I don't feel like many people have, at least, I mean, I've never come across it in any discourse that I've seen online. So, underrated gem. Very cute, just bros being bros. They're just having a good time, and you can tell, and that's what I think is the best part about it. It's just like 2 friends that were like, let's just make some music that we actually want to make for once, and I think that spirit of fun and creativity and collaboration is throughout, so if you like singer-songwriters and you like 70s rock, check it out. By Steely Dan. This is an original copy that my dad owned, I think, back in the day. This album came out in 1977 from ABC Records. It's actually a pretty short record, if you can see. There's not that many tracks on it. I love how simplistic the art is as well. It's so cool. This one also opens up on the inside. We've got the play-by-play of like the entire album, the process, stuff about the tracks, how they came up with the name of the album, all that good stuff. Very, very cool. Steely Dan is just so freaking cool. They're so cool. If you're not familiar with them, their style is very jazzy, bluesy, soul vibes. And they do have an eclectic sound, I would say. It's not super polished by any means. They do have a lot of songs that are very, very similar in sound and lyrical structure, but I would say amongst their hits is a lot of variety. Deacon Blues and Peg are like completely different songs. But then you could compare Deacon Blues and Black Cow, you know, they're different, but I think they sound more similar than Peg does anyway. If you're new to 70s music and you're trying to like get your bearings, you've got to include Steely Dan. They're very different than I think what most of the mainstream music was at that time, but they were super important and influential, and they were very popular, so you've got to add this to your library if you haven't already. Okay, so I have 2 more records for you guys. These are technically repeats from my last video, but the reason why I'm showing them to you is because these are original copies that I didn't have at the time. I had reissues in my previous video, and these are 2 very iconic albums that I had wanted original copies of forever, and now I finally do, so I gotta show it to you guys. Eagles' Their Greatest Hits from 1971 to 1975. This album came out in 1976. If you want to hear me talk more about this, you can check it out in my previous vinyl video, which I'm going to link below, as I said before. And then we've got an original copy of Rumors by Fleetwood Mac from 1977. You guys, I was so excited to get these. This one belonged to my dad or my aunt, somebody in my dad's family. This one belonged to my aunt as well, and you can see it actually has a note written from my aunt's cousin on here. Like, why would you write on the cover of Rumors? It kind of hurts me, honestly, but whatever. The interesting thing about this original copy is that it's got this really cool, like, textured cover. You can't see from here, but it almost has like a leather look to it. Fleetwood Mac is like one of my favorite bands, as you can see. This is one of their best albums in my opinion. Unfortunately, it doesn't play very well. Very, very sad. I think it skips on Dreams, which is like the saddest thing of all. But either way, I'm just happy to have it. Now for the Eagles record, this does actually play really well. We've got some really great wear and tear on the corners. Eagles is another one of my favorite bands. I'm actually gonna be seeing them in concert in a few months, so I'm really pumped about it. This was made in 1976, and I'm holding a piece of history. How cool is that, you know? In my opinion, the 1970s are one of, if not the greatest era for music. People just don't write songs like that anymore. There is such an artistry to the storytelling of those songs. There was such a value put on singer-songwriters then that I don't know is totally emphasized now, at least not in mainstream music. To me, the best adjective that I could use to describe the 1970s music scene is warm. There's such a warmth that 70s music has that I don't think any other decade really does have, and I haven't read too much into this, but I feel like it's probably a response to so much grief and strife and pain and confusion that was happening in the 1960s with the war and the civil rights movement, and like so much was happening, so much change was taking place, and there was a lot of pain being unearthed in this country at the same time. And so to me, I think the music of the 70s was this release of that pain and this desire to want to return to a warm, safe, loving place. And that's what that music represents to me. Sometimes when I listen to music, I think of colors. And for me, 70s music always, always, always brings colors that are like orange, earthy browns, golden yellow. And it just feels like a hug, which I know sounds so corny, but that's like true. And I think that's part of why I love it so much. Not only the fact that, you know, it gives me this weird sense of nostalgia for a time I don't really know, but it's also very comforting. And it does, in a way, remind me of being a kid because I grew up listening to 70s music. But now I think I've kind of adopted these sounds and they're very much my own and they relate to my life currently. So it's a very complex relationship with this kind of music, but it's something that I always come back to, you know, even if I venture off into different genres or different decades. Like the 70s to me is like this kind of anchor that like I just always come back to it no matter what. Thank you so much for watching. I hope you enjoyed this video. If you haven't seen my previous vinyl video, check it out. I'm gonna link it below and have it at the end of this video. And I am planning on making some more vinyl videos in the future going into other decades in my collection. So hopefully you guys will stick around for those. Let me know in the comments below if you have any of these same records or if you collect vinyl. I'd love to hear your story. Don't forget to like and subscribe, follow Gold Souls on Instagram, and I will see you in the next video.